heard the argument 100 times. There's only one band that sounds like Zeppelin. That's the lazy response everybody falls back on. And if you've ever said, they don't make bands like Zeppelin anymore, trust me, you're not alone.
Feeling that you don't belong. The world keeps on humming.
But the thing is, they do. You just have to know where to listen. So we dug past the hype and found 10 modern bands carrying different pieces of that Zeppelin soul. Each one in their own wild, authentic way. So crank it up. Let's get into it. Number 10. They didn't just chase the Zeppelin myth. They just played the blues like it was still hot from the amplifier tubes. The temperance movement. They came out of Britain with the kind of grit you only get from years spent in vans and tiny clubs. No costumes, no mystique, just songs built on feel. That smoky, late-night blend of blues and roots rock that recalls the spirit of Zeppelin without imitating a single note. Formed in 2011 by Glasgow-born vocalist Phil Campbell alongside guitarist Luke Potashnick, with Paul Sayer on second guitar, Nick Fife on bass, and Damon Wilson on drums. The band built everything around Campbell's raw, soul-worn voice and Potashnick's guitar work. More faces than Page, but hitting the same emotional nerve. Honest, loose, human. Their 2013 self-titled debut, co-produced with engineer Sam Miller, wasn't a blockbuster, but it didn't need to be. Cut quickly in London studios and driven by that warm live band thump, it told older fans, yes, this is still alive. Proof that authenticity, not imitation, is where the true Zeppelin lineage runs. Number 9. Some bands don't try to sound like the 70s. They sound like they were accidentally left there and never came home. Radio Moscow. This is the band you stumbled into by accident and walked out wondering how you missed them for so long. Radio Moscow grew out of Parker Grigg's home-recorded solo project in Iowa, a place no one associates with blues-psych firestorms, before he linked up with Alive Natural Sound Records. Their 2007 debut, produced by Dan Auerbach of the Black Keys, is all tube-amp heap and fretboard danger.
Little girl, I hope you miss me just.
Griggs handled vocals, guitar, drums, and percussion, bending notes the way Page used to when the tape was rolling and the room was hot. And here's the thing, they're not retro for the sake of it. They jam hard. Songs stretch, erupt, and then reassemble mid-solo, the kind of improvisational chaos Zeppelin fans know by heart. Number 8. You hear the first scream and your brain goes, wait, who the hell is that? And then the band comes in behind him like a freight train out of 1972. Scorpion Child. Austin wasn't exactly known for birthing hard rock mystics in the 2010s, but Scorpion Child made it feel like the desert winds had shifted. First formed in 2006 as an Austin-based duo, they didn't really break through until their self-titled 2013 album on Nuclear Blast, a record cut with producer Chris "Frenchie" Smith, who knew how to capture volume without sanding off the edges. At the center is Aaron Jonathan Black, a frontman with a voice that flares into those plant-adjacent wails without ever crossing into parody. The riffs are rooted in heavy blues, but there's a darker occult shimmer running underneath. More Deep Purple Mark II than Zeppelin II, with the same sense of mystique and momentum. What makes them belong here isn't imitation, it's energy. High-octane, sweat in the monitors, stage lights, too hot energy. The kind older fans remember, and younger ones rarely stumble into.
No relation with the
Number 7. Some bands are guitar first, drum first, riff first. This one hits you with a Hammond organ before anything else even has a chance to breathe. DeWolff.
Feeling that you don't belong. The world keeps on humming, humming, humming.
DeWolff came out of the Netherlands deep south, in Geleen, sounding like they were raised inside a Hammond cabinet. Formed in 2007 by brothers Pablo and Luca van de Poel, with Robin Piso on Hammond organ, they built their reputation the old way. Long tours, long jams, and longer nights buried in analog gear. By the time they cut Grand Southern Electric in 2014, produced by Grammy-winning Black Keys collaborator Mark Neal, their identity was carved in tape hiss and tube warmth. Piso's Hammond isn't decoration, it's the backbone. Pablo's guitar lines weave around it with that slow-burn confidence older fans remember. The kind you can't fake and you can't rush. And yes, they still record to tape. Not as a gimmick, but because it makes every note breathe. A perfect curveball as this list climbs higher.
I'm bona fide, baby. Are you out of your mind?
Before we go any higher, who'd you put on this list? Drop it below. Number 6. Some bands show promise. This one got picked up by the same label that bet early on AC/DC. And you can hear why in the first 10 seconds. The Answer. Northern Ireland has produced its share of hard rock lifers. But The Answer had something labels rarely gamble on anymore. Urgency. Formed in County Down in 2000, they spent years grinding in clubs before releasing Rise in 2006 on Albert Productions, the same label that backed AC/DC's early climb. Those opening seconds tell the story. Raw conviction, no gloss. Cormac Neeson's voice arrives like a flare, gritty, fearless, steeped in blues phrasing, but capable of that high-voltage lift associated with the great 70s frontmen. Paul Mann's guitar tone is bright and muscular, rooted in blues dynamics that Zeppelin built entire nights around. Rise feels alive, a band running hot, pushing air, carrying the spirit forward without ever needing to announce it.
You look me in the eye, tell me, do you see a trace of fear?
Number 5. Some bands' singers sound influenced by the 70s. This one sounds like she walked out of a forgotten reel from '69 with the dust still on her boots. Blues Pills. Blues Pills came together in 2011 in Örebro, Sweden, a cross-continental collision built around American musicians Zach Anderson and Corey Berry, who met Swedish vocalist Elin Larsson in the U.S. and moved the project to Sweden's heart. Their early demo sessions in Örebro eventually led them to sign with Nuclear Blast, and by July 2014, they released their self-titled debut produced by Don Alsterberg. The record breathes with analog warmth, microphones close enough to catch the air, guitars soaked in tube saturation rather than digital polish.
Broken home, shitty telephone. I don't come from money, but
Dorian Saro's guitar work leans into blues-psych bends that trace back to the raw pulse of Led Zeppelin 1. But Larsson is the fuse, fierce, controlled, and unmistakably herself. Blues Pills don't revive the era. They sound like they've tunneled straight into its bloodstream.
don't look back. I'm a smooth operator. Take me to the 13th floor.
Number 4. You hear that first wail from the mic, and suddenly every old-school hard rock instinct fires at once. It's the kind of entrance you don't forget. Wolfmother. Australia wasn't exactly the center of the hard rock universe in the mid-2000s, but Wolfmother erupted out of Sydney like a forgotten branch of the 70s had suddenly sprouted new leaves. Born out of several years of jamming between Andrew Stockdale, Chris Ross, and Miles Heskett, starting around 2000, they officially formed Wolfmother in 2004 and spent the next stretch grinding in clubs before their self-titled debut dropped in 2005. Recorded at Sound City with producer Dave Sardy, who knew how to capture sheer volume without sanding it into modern gloss. Stockdale handled vocals and guitar, pulling from that heavy blues lineage where Zeppelin, Sabbath, and early Deep Purple overlap in a haze of fuzz and British steel. The riffs were massive. The drums, from Miles Heskett, had that big, resonant room sound older recordings lived on. And Stockdale's vocal approach, piercing, dramatic, unmistakably his, gave the whole thing lift and danger. Wolfmother didn't revive the 70s, they jolted it back to life.
It seems that others thought they could take it this sweet time.
Number 3. Every generation gets one band that feels like they were born on the road, not in a boardroom. A band that walks on stage and makes you remember why loud guitars mattered in the first place. Dirty Honey. Dirty Honey didn't come out of some major label machine. They came up in Los Angeles the old way. Relentless gigging, cramped vans, battered gear, and a frontman with a vocal that sounds like it's lived a few extra decades. Mark LaBelle can hit those high, sandpaper-edged lines without ever drifting into imitation, while guitarist John Notto leans into the blues rock fundamentals. Open string riffs, wide bends, and that dry, unpolished tone you get from pushing air through a tube amp.
Don't put up the fire. Don't put up.
When their self-titled EP dropped independently in 2019, it connected because it felt real. No over-edited perfection, no plastic gloss. Just 4 musicians playing like the red light actually means something. They carry the same live wire charge that made Zeppelin dangerous. Number 2. Some bands don't ask for the comparison. The world just throws it at them like a gauntlet. And sometimes that comparison becomes its own kind of burden. Greta Van Fleet. Few modern bands have been dragged into the Zeppelin conversation as forcefully or as loudly as Greta Van Fleet. Formed in Frankenmuth, Michigan in 2012 by brothers Josh, Jake, and Sam Kiska, with drummer Kyle Hoke, they solidified their classic lineup when longtime friend Danny Wagner took over on drums a year later. They didn't set out to spark a cultural debate, but when From the Fires dropped in 2017, the reaction was immediate. Josh's high-register phrasing, Jake's blues-based guitar lines, the vintage production aesthetic. It all hit listeners in that familiar place. Critics split fast. Some praised the revival of blues rock dynamics. Others accused them of leaning too close to Zeppelin's early DNA. Here's the truth. Greta Van Fleet didn't create the comparison, but they couldn't outrun it either. What they did do was reintroduce big vocals, loud guitars, and unashamed classic rock ambition to an era that had almost forgotten the taste of it. Number 1. Every generation has one band the musicians point to quietly, like they've known the answer longer than the critics have. The kind of band whose live shows settle the argument without a word. Rival Sons. Long Beach might seem like an unlikely birthplace for a band steeped in blues fire, but Rival Sons built their reputation on stages where volume and conviction mattered more than trends. Jay Buchanan sings like he's summoning something ancient, raw, aching, unguarded, and Scott Holliday's guitar work hits with that tight, melodic force that comes from living inside the riff, not dressing it up.
Squeeze off a couple rounds, put me away till next time.
Their breakthrough came with Pressure in Time in 2011, their second album, but the first that felt like the world finally caught up. Released on Earache Records and produced by Dave Cobb, it captured a band that thrives on feel over perfection. The kind of chemistry you don't polish, you just capture. Musicians noticed, critics noticed, even legends quietly nodded in their direction. Rival Sons didn't revive Zeppelin's sound. They revived the temperament, the blues tension, the dynamic push and pull, the sense that every song is a living thing. That's why they stand here at the top.
Blind your eyes, steal your tongue.
There's always another band in the wings. Who'd we miss? Let us know in the comments.